Thank you for allowing me to share my perspective on recent events. As a liberal Israeli that has had a first row view to the peace process with the Palestinians, at least one of them, as a father to an amazing Jewish girl here in California, and as an Israeli that has lost family members in the savage attack on October 7th. Rabbi Paul just mentioned them, Daniel, Noam, and his girlfriend, Danielle, who attended the party with him. All three of them murdered because they were Jewish. On October 7th, we witnessed unspeakable horrors. I have a part here where I was going to describe some of them, but I see there's kids around and I'm going to skip that part. But we lost 1,400 people, and we have 242 that are currently being held hostage. For a country like Israel, with a population the size of Los Angeles, that is equivalent to 15 9/11s. 45,000 casualties that we had to witness in gory detail and just being live streamed for the world to see. We naively thought that the world would sympathize with us, if only for a short while. Surely in the day and age when words are violence and silence is violence, the murder of 1,400 people is also violence. Surely after we marched for every attacked minority, everybody would be marching with us and for us. To our dismay, instead of waves of sympathy, we received hatred. Instead of an embrace from the global community, chants for our extermination. Anti-Semitic incidents are up 400% in the US since October 7th. They're up 1,300% in the UK since October 7th. According to the FBI, Jews represent 2.4% of the US population, but account for 60% of the religious-based hate crimes. That's not normal. How is this possible? How could it be that otherwise enlightened people who believe in equality and human rights are literally marching in celebration of the massacre of our children? Tearing down posters of kidnapped babies? Before I attempt to humbly answer this question, I would like to note that I do feel fortunate that my daughter goes to Viewpoint. Having a school where your Jewish daughter can feel safe and can wear her Star of David is not a given in this day and age. So I want to thank the school's leadership, Mark and Alan, for making that a reality. It's appreciated. The support we're seeing for the October 7th atrocities is a result of the dehumanization of Jews. Israel is a colonial, genocidal, apartheid state. It is the epitome of evil. Everybody says so, over and over and over again. These statements are detached from reality. But repeated often enough, they start sounding like truths. I don't know of any other way to dispel lies, if not blood libels, than with facts. I grew up in Israel, and I can assure you, it's not an apartheid state. It isn't perfect by any means, but it is a diverse and pluralistic place where over 20% of the population is Palestinian, and they enjoy equal rights under the law. This includes engineers, members of parliament, beloved athletes, Supreme Court justices, doctors that work shoulder to shoulder with my brother in Tel Aviv's biggest hospital. I spent overnight visits in the houses of Arab children as a child, and they did the same in mine. My house was adjacent to an immigration center that took in part of the 150,000 Ethiopian Jews that currently live in Israel. Daily life includes interactions with Arabs, Druze, Bedouins, Christians, and others. In fact, on October 7th, many Israeli Arabs heroically sacrificed their own lives to save Jews that were being attacked by Hamas. That's not an apartheid state, and it doesn't matter how often you repeat that. To those who say that Israel is a colonizer, I say, how can we be colonizers in our ancestral homeland? I was born in a kibbutz, a stone throws away from Magdala. It's a 2,000-year-old Jewish fishing village, also supposed birthplace of Maria Magdalena. How many of you can say the same? How many of you live a stone's throw away from where your ancestors lived 2,000 years ago? That's not colonization, I'm sorry. those who scream about occupation, I say Gaza hasn't been occupied since 2005. To those who claim that Gaza is the world's largest open-air prison, I say Gaza has a border with Egypt. Gaza could have been Dubai, it could have been Singapore, but they chose Hamas instead. Billions of dollars were flowing in. There was no blockade. Merchandise was flowing in. But all of that was funneled into a terrorist infrastructure. Isn't it odd that Gaza is running out of everything except missiles? If you truly care about Palestinians, I tell them, you should free Palestine from Hamas. To those who accuse Israel of the Palestinian refugees, I say, please use critical thinking. Where else have you seen refugees that are 4 generations removed from their displacement, living in their own country in permanent residences? The situation in Gaza is very problematic, but those are not refugees. To those who ask for an immediate ceasefire, I say, we had a ceasefire on October 6th, but Hamas broke it just like it broke the last 7 ceasefires. How do you make a ceasefire with a terror regime whose very charter calls for your extermination? What you should be asking for is a release of the hostages. To those who scream genocide, I say, what genocide? Israel has the world's 7th strongest army. Surely, if it wanted to commit genocide, the Palestinian population wouldn't have grown 5-fold in the last 50 years. That's not a genocide. I want to be clear, every single life lost is a tragedy, and I'm not downplaying the lives lost. War is horrific, and my heart truly breaks for every child lost in Gaza. But casualty figures cannot and are not an indication of morality. Almost 1 million German civilians died in World War II, but only 70,000 British. Does that mean that the Nazis were right? That's not how we measure right and wrong. And to those who passionately march against Israel, gleefully calling for our genocide, to them I say, why is it that you're so rattled by the tragic loss of 10,000 Palestinian lives, but not by the even more tragic loss of 300,000 Yemenite lives at the hands of Saudi Arabia in a conflict that's ongoing right now? Why are you so rattled and so outraged by the temporary displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians out of an active war zone, but not by the permanent displacement of 1.7 million Afghans from Pakistan that started only this week? But above all, what I ask them is, do you honestly believe that a jihadist terror organization that targets civilians, imprisons gays, and places its headquarters under a hospital is morally equivalent to a democratic country that does everything possible to get civilians on both sides out of harm's way, and that even performed life-saving surgery on the current head of Hamas, Sinwar, by removing his brain tumor? Those are not morally equivalent. I understand that many feel validated, maybe even emboldened, by the masses of anti-Israel protesters, which include celebrities, human rights organizations, and even members of Congress. To them I say, there are 15 million Jews in the world and almost 2 billion Muslims. We are always the few, we are always outnumbered. Please don't outsource your moral compass to people or organizations whose agendas and biases you may not fully be aware of. I, like many Israelis, want to coexist with the Palestinians. We've shown it in actions, giving back most of our land to Egypt, striking peace with Jordan, and forcibly removing 9,000 Israelis from Gaza in 2005. That withdrawal came on the heels of the unraveling of the 2000 peace process, a process that my father led. Some of you may recall the optimism of those days, the summits in Camp David with Yasser Arafat and Bill Clinton in attendance. We were also hopeful that maybe, finally, that vision of the new Middle East was within reach. This was the moment for peace. But instead of peace, we got an intifada. Because sadly, from the river to the sea doesn't leave much room for peace. Not now and not ever. And that's why we must not accept this chant ever. Finally, I hope that even if I failed to convince you of Israel's cause, we can at least agree that there is simply no justification for the persecution of Jews we are witnessing today around the world. Jews have been murdered from France to Westlake Village. We just heard about that incident. Where is the outrage? Where is the condemnation? Jewish homes are being tagged from Berlin to LA. Our daughters are taking off their Star of David necklaces. We're changing our names on Uber and Lyft just in case, just to be safe. Israel, that I assume sounds like a really dangerous place to many of you, recently issued a travel warning advising Israelis not to come here because it's too dangerous for Jews here. Let that sink in. Make no mistake, the persecution of Jews predates the State of Israel, and it's unrelated to the State of Israel. Don't be misled into thinking otherwise. That's not how this works. 2/3 of American young adults don't know that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. 1/4 of them think the Holocaust is a myth or greatly exaggerated. I think we need to do better. Never again is now, and it starts with education and with speaking up. And finally, I just want to leave you with a quote from Elie Wiesel, because I think we need to see past slogans and past blood libels. And his quote is, "The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference." Thank you.